So glad to be back on campus along with all the other students. Great to see students making their way to classes. I never took an early morning class like this, so props to them. Students already heading to the rec center also as well. But just a very exciting day here in Pullman. When you think about a lot of students haven't been back to the classroom in a year and a half for some students, this is a really big day. You know, a lot of them really miss that in-person learning experience and that engagement being together. And so, yeah, a lot of students very happy to be back here. So of course, this past spring, only a small number of students were allowed to return to in-person classes, but those were a lot of like special in-person classes that kind of had an exemption. Today, most students will be returning back for the first time in a year, and there will be some new regulations in place to keep students safe, of course, and let's talk about them. One of the biggest one, obviously, is the mask mandate, but that's not just for students here on campus. That applies to everyone in Washington, that mandate beginning today in indoor public spaces. And on campus, that means campus buildings like the rec center, student union buildings, and then also students will need to wear masks in class as well. But there are some exceptions for vaccinated people. They are when someone is working alone with no face-to-face interactions, and vaccinated instructors can remove their masks when teaching if they can maintain social distancing. So we did speak to some students about how they felt about masks returning, and generally they were in support of the mandate and say they really just want to protect their fellow Cougs.
I think with like the Delta variant getting really predominant in this area, I think it could be really important to enforce the mask mandate.
Of course, I'd like for it to get to the point where we don't have to wear them anymore if people just follow the rules, but it's okay.
So let's talk about students and staff on campus will also be required to show proof of vaccination. Right now, students have until September 10th to be fully vaccinated, and then students living on campus already had to actually be vaccinated by August 6th. There were some exemptions for medical and religious or personal reasons, but of course this all changing with the breaking news this morning of the FDA approving the Pfizer vaccine. So yeah, this is really big news here this morning in Pullman, and I'm joined now this morning by Philweiler. So glad to have you here with us, spokesperson for WSU. First of all, go Cougs!
Go Cougs!
Yeah, we're back on campus.
We have been waiting a year and a half for this day. We've spent all summer preparing to make sure we can keep this campus safe for our students, and to make sure they have a great experience. As you said, you know, we have students who are sophomores, they're in their second year and they have never set foot on this campus. So we had a great event for them on Friday night to welcome them for the first time to their home that they hadn't seen. So this is going to be a really special year.
It really is going to be a special year. A very exciting first day for not just the incoming freshmen, but for the continuing students also. But Phil, I do want to jump right into, obviously this is new information this morning with the Pfizer FDA approval. WSU was one of the first schools to mandate the vaccine for students. Talk about what this means now. There will be no more exemptions, right? Now that
there'll be no personal exemption. So in April, Washington State University was the first public university to require students to be vaccinated. At the time, it was uncharted territory as far as the legal issues were concerned. So in addition to the routine medical and religious exemptions, we added what we call the personal exemption. If somebody just said, I'm not comfortable with it. But we've stated this summer that as soon as the first vaccine received full approval from the FDA, and as you said, that happened just this morning, we're going to be doing away with that personal exemption. So those students will need to get vaccinated. The great news is more than 90% of our students so far are fully vaccinated, which blows us away. We are really proud of the students for doing the right thing and getting the vaccine. As you mentioned, they have until September 10th to complete that process. There's still some folks who have not yet declared their status or proved their status, but we do have vaccine clinics scheduled for the next couple weeks so that if there are people who haven't had a chance to get the jab yet, they can do it now.
Yeah, and so Phil, you said it was just the first one to get approved, and then it would get rid of that personal one. So it doesn't matter about Moderna or Pfizer. It's just, just Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah, as long as the first one received the full FDA approval, that was when the when the personal exemption was going to go away. So effective today, that's the case.
Great. Okay, so I also want to ask you about what other changes are students going to expect? You know, some returning students, this might be their first time back on campus. What's going to be different this year?
Yeah, we actually spent the summer putting together a 12-point plan to make sure we could keep the campus safe. So it's vaccinations, it's mask mandates, it is quarantine, it's contact tracing, it's personal protective gear, it's sanitation. We've got a lot of work that we've done, and I have to say, I've just really been amazed at how adaptive students have been. You know, last week was week of welcome, so students were returning last week, and they have taken the changes in stride. I think they want to get in the classroom, they want to have that face-to-face interaction that they've been missing, and they're willing to do those really small steps. When it comes down to it, wearing a mask and getting a free vaccine is a small step to take in order to make sure everyone is safe.
That's right. We have to wrap up here, but I want to ask you, what about sporting events and football? What will that experience be like?
Yeah, at this point, we believe we're going to be able to have everybody in the stadium for both indoor and outdoor events. That said, the pandemic has thrown us curveballs in the past. We are going to follow every requirement at the local, state, federal level. So if things change, we'll be changing with them. But at this point, we're looking forward to athletic competitions.
All right, let's go Cougs. I love it.
Absolutely.
All right, Phil, thanks so much for being with us this morning. We really appreciate it. And so coming up in our next hour, we're going to be taking you across the state line, just a quick drive over to Moscow for the University of Idaho's first day of school as well. So we'll send it back to you in the studio.